People aren't cancelling because of price, and people aren't not joining because of price. The cost of living crisis, yes, things are more expensive. There is certainly an economic squeeze put on a lot of households and a lot of people, but the younger generation is still spending money.
Gen Z's obviously biggest demographic in terms of purchasing power when it comes to the health and fitness space. How does that look like from the businesses that you're working with from a service delivery? How are they meeting this changing need of the consumer?
Unlike previous generations, they have a little bit more of a wellness mindset and they are thinking more about mental health. What would you think the biggest reason for people leaving a gym would be?
Not using the product.
It's actually... What is the average amount of money that your client spends every single week in your business, and how are you going to increase that by 4%, 5%, 6%? Or martial arts as a discipline created the greatest retention strategy. How do we replicate that? How do we create that grading system where people come in on day one and the map is clear?
What's one belief that gym or studios have that the data disagrees with?
I think...
Welcome to an exciting episode of Profit Made Simple. We have a great guest and one that you will be familiar with. He's a returning guest. Welcome back to the show, Mr. John Paul Rami.
I'm glad you have me back, mate. I wasn't sure after the first time, but here we are. So I must have done something reasonably right, I guess.
You did a lot right. It was one of our most viewed episodes, but this one's going to be a lot different. So if you haven't watched it, go back, watch John's first episode. He tells his story and he's almost had a couple of decades in the industry now. He's done a lot of different things and there was so many wise lessons shared. But this one is going to be all around data. I'm looking forward to it because you're in a privileged position in that you get to see more data, consumer behavior than just about anybody else in the industry itself.
Absolutely. I mean, being the software that's sitting behind, I guess, the front desk of so many different fitness businesses, different countries, and not just that, being in a position where I get to have very in-depth conversations with so many operators, not just about the system and the tools and how they're going to implement technology, but really about what they're finding in the industry, what's working, what's not, the conversations they're having with staff on a day-to-day basis, the conversation members and staff are having. So yes, we get to see a lot of that data that comes through from these businesses, but we also get a lot from the conversations that we get to have to them. And that's probably been a huge rewarding piece of what we get to do,
Yeah, fantastic. Well, if you don't know, John is the owner of Xoda, a terrific CRM to help gym owners, studio owners run their business really seamlessly and easily. So John, right now you're seeing a lot of data, you're having a lot of conversations. What are some of the significant trends that are happening right now in the industry itself?
I think there's a couple of things. There is certainly a greater shift in the consumer mindset more towards wellness. Mm-hmm. We're seeing Gen Zs come through. They're now becoming the biggest consumers of health and fitness products. And unlike previous generations, they have a little bit more of a wellness mindset and they are thinking more about mental health as opposed to previous generations where probably aesthetics drove them more to health clubs. And that's where we saw the big wave of the weight loss challenges, the body transformations. And that really spoke to some of the older generations that, they did view weight loss as probably a primary reason why they wanted to go and engage with a health and fitness facility. But yeah, the rise now in wellness, it's sort of a different mentality amongst the main consumers coming through. They want a fitness business that can support them in a few modalities.
So what does that look like practically? So Gen Z's obviously biggest demographic in terms of purchasing power when it comes to the health and fitness space. They want wellness, so they're valuing how they feel, energy, longevity, mental health, as opposed to the aesthetic. Not to say it's not important, but it's that is number one. How does that look like from the businesses that you're working with from a service delivery? How are they meeting this changing need of the consumer?
I think we've been through a few changes in the health and fitness industry. And if we go way back into the 90s, it was big box and it was large facilities that had a variety of different modalities. And then we sort of shifted in the mid-2000s to the 24-hour era. and everything became about low cost and driving convenience. And then if you look at 12, 13, when let's take F45 because it's a brand that everybody recognizes, and I would say was probably one of the pioneering brands in launching the boutique era.
Absolutely, they were.
You look at the time that they launched. It was the battle of the 24 hours. Everything was towards lower cost gym memberships and heightening convenience. It was all about maximizing convenience, reducing the cost, and that's where the market was going. And then here comes this brand that says, well, we're not going to let you train whenever you want. In fact, we're going to tell you when you need to train because we're going to have set times and you can only come to the studio in those set times. We're going to be much smaller, reduce the equipment required dramatically, and we're going to charge 3-4 times the price. And when you think about that proposition in a time where the entire market was moving towards maximizing convenience,
kind of crazy, isn't it? It's so counterintuitive.
And what happened to that model? It exploded.
Unbelievable.
It exploded, and to this day, I feel it's probably the most scalable boutique model that's ever existed. I don't think it
will ever be matched.
No, and so that was a real changing in the guard, and I think we had that boutique era, which has been hugely successful. Pilates was born out of that, and that was the consumer wanting to have a very clear experience that they wanted to have. It wasn't just about cost and convenience. They wanted a different kind of experience. The birth of the fitness community, all these things started to become a more sort of viable offering in the market. We're definitely seeing boutiques continuing to do well. It is becoming a lot more of a competitive market and is becoming more difficult for them to differentiate, which I think has slowed them down. The big box clubs are beginning to make their return.
I'm definitely seeing that. And I describe it to people like this is the boutiques opened up this whole new category, this whole new space. And all of a sudden, to open a gym, it became that much more accessible.
Yep.
So I could open a gym with a couple of $100,000. And that was a decent studio at that point in time. To build a commercial gym, you need $3 or $4 million, right? To have a decent commercial space. So now all of a sudden it's a lot more accessible. However, supply has gone up. Demand has probably not risen with the supply. And so now we see this squeezing of that boutique market because the barriers to entry are lower. I think the commercial club is, again, gaining in popularity and usage because it's hard to get into the market. How many people have multiple $1 million and how many spaces are there to actually operate that kind of model within?
Absolutely. And they have the space and the footprint to be able to offer different modalities.
That's right.
And people are definitely wanting to have different experiences in the health and wellness space. Again, it's health and fitness has broadened and expanded beyond just going to the gym and working up a sweat.
Yeah.
It is now encompassing recovery. It's encompassing, mental health, meditation. Obviously yoga has been popular and will always be popular for that reason. So, they are offering a broader variety to customers, which I think is appealing to the younger generation. And you've got a more educated consumer.
Far more
educated consumer. So they will often have a bit more of a clearer picture in terms of what they want. I remember selling gym memberships in 2008, 9, and people would come in and they had no idea what different equipment was for. It was a real, the challenge was educating consumers enough to actually see the benefit. We were still trying to convince women that weight training wasn't going to get you bulky. So education was really the barrier and you had to invest a lot in education. Now I think what businesses need to be doing is investing a lot in explaining their experience as opposed to trying to ram different offers. And, the data, like people aren't canceling because of price and people aren't not joining because of price. The cost of living crisis, yes, things are more expensive. There is certainly an economic squeeze put on a lot of households and a lot of people, but the younger generation is still spending money.
As a proportion of their income, they are spending more than any other generation we've ever seen on their health and wellness.
Absolutely.
And so they will go without certain things that we wouldn't to prioritize.
Absolutely.
That. So we're seeing a rise in the wellness. And so now some of the services or the spaces that are doing well, they have recovery. They might have some mindfulness components. The scope of what they're offering has expanded.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think they're, I would say the next 5 to 10 years, the boutiques will still play an incredibly pivotal role in health and fitness, provided you can specialize as well. And you are very, very clear on what part of the consumer journey you want to own or the consumer lifespan you want to own. And the big boxes will always be there to be that multi-purpose facility that people that just want that choice, probably a more educated consumer that has a little bit more of an understanding of what they need and what their body responds to, will want that variety, will want that choice. So both are going to be there, but they have to talk to a different customer or consumer, and they have to be able to niche themselves correctly, I would say.
There's two big things that you've said that I want to come back to that I just want to draw out. The first is, back when you and I had our first places, it was very much around trying to educate the consumer. Now the consumer is so educated thanks to podcasts and AI and just general awareness. So now it's about the experience, you said. And I've said for a long time, we're not in the fitness industry, we're in the experience industry. So what does that look like if I'm a gym owner and I'm hearing, okay, I've got to explain the experience? What does that mean?
I think being clear on your experience has a few critical benefits. And firstly, the experience is, what are people going to say about you and what are people going to feel when they come and they interact with your business?
So what are they going to feel? What are they going to say?
Absolutely. So if I'm talking about the consumer experience and, we have incredibly unique workouts or we have a great community, that experience is going to look very different to a club that is focused on having the best variety of equipment, for argument's sake. And it's going to talk to a different person. But focusing on your experience and being able to clearly define your experience makes it harder for competitors to reach you because offers are far more easier to replicate. Okay, so if I'm just going to put out a 2-week free offer, I'm going to put out a trial at 10 days, unlimited classes. Those things are very easy for competitors to create the artwork and push the same
And
ad.
you've seen everyone jump on it. Everyone's running the same offers. It's copycat offers.
So when you're talking to a inquiry and they are looking at 2 or 3 options in their community, because let's face it, most communities now are probably going to give consumers more than 2 or 3 options. If all they're hearing is the same offer, they're probably going to go with the one that maybe has a little bit better parking or is slightly closer to the house. So you have to get people sold on experience, and you've got to differentiate through experiences. And the other part is, again, looking at the tech side, we talk so much to customers about implementation of processes and systems. And sometimes I forget this as well, and it's easy to jump into a call and say, let's automate this, let's automate that, because that's what you should do and you want to save yourself time, without really understanding the type of experience that business wants to provide. And I think the only way you can actually implement useful systems in your business is to start with the experience that you have and you want to provide first, and then work backwards to the system.
Yeah,
right?
Begin with the end in mind. All right. So
correct.
What does that consumer experience look like? What are my non-negotiables on this? What are my principles that are going to drive it? And then reverse engineer it.
So if I'm talking to a lead, or I have a customer inquire into my business and I want to make an impression to that lead, whether it's via an email or a conversation or a tour, what is the experience that I want them to have, and what do I want them to know about me? Are we a business based on luxury? Are we going to give you the most luxurious experience? Are we a business that is going to educate you and provide you with more knowledge than anybody else can in our community for what you need? Are we a business that is all about service? Are you going to experience a service that cannot be rivaled by our competitors? They're 3 very different directions you can go in.
Very. And
what you should automate and what you should not automate, and who you should get to pick up the call, it should be determined by the experience that you want to provide. I mean, we had a conversation with you and I last Friday with a health club owner who is scaling his model quite substantially in a short period of time. Very automated model, minimal reliance on staff. And what did he say to us? He said, if we're getting 3 leads a day, which is all we really need, why do we want to automate that?
Yeah, it was such an interesting insight, right? Because we can sometimes hammer home general principles without actually looking at the specific, as you said, experience, or what do we actually want to impart on the consumer itself. I'm not going to automate something if my philosophy or my principle is going to be around personalization and people first, and making sure that there's a connection.
Yeah, automate the parts of your business that don't deliver that experience, so you have the time to deliver that personalized experience in the moment where it counts. And I think that's an important part. And I think any business owner out there that's looking at their business and trying to figure out where they need to streamline and where they need to save time, and that's very important things to do. But if you're not clear and you haven't clearly defined the experience that you're trying to deliver and why that experience is unique, and if your staff aren't very aware of that as well, you might be setting up processes in the wrong areas.
Yeah, I love that. I love that insight. Particularly, I'll digress a little bit, and then there's another statement you made that I want to come back to. And a lot of the conversation and chatter right now is obviously around AI and creating these agents that can do things for you, and having people, AI calling agents, AI chatbots. But again, I think you really need to look at your experience and going, do I want AI doing some of this if it's incongruent with the service and the delivery model and the experience that I'm trying to provide?
Yeah. And look, there's relevance in those tools if you're completely about speed and ultra convenience.
Yeah.
Because you've got a low cost model that's self-explanatory, that's targeting a certain type of user that's going to make a decision quickly. Other more boutique based or consultation based businesses where there is a lot more prescription that goes into the customer, they're probably not things that you might necessarily want to automate. So
it's more high touch model because that's the field that you've decided to play in.
100%. So get clear on the experience. I think is critical. Make sure you can articulate that experience, and your staff are very, very clear on that as well, because their interactions with customers day in, day out should be with that experience in mind, and with the intent of making sure that experience is delivered. So offer, you're only going to get so far.
Yeah.
You need to have ways to hook people, absolutely, and ways to get them excited about your business, but you sell people and you create a differentiator in your community by delivering unique experiences to the audience that you're trying to target.
Love it. Now, you made a statement going back a little bit about the boutique model, and you said the boutique model will need to evolve, and they'll need to choose either the niche or the stage of life that they're operating in. I'm paraphrasing, but what did you mean by that?
It's almost like it's a bit of a counterintuitive statement, because when you sort of go into business, instinctively you want to have a big TAM or total addressable market.
Yeah.
And you think that the secret to having a big successful business is to have a large portion of the population that you can service.
Yeah.
And it seldom works, right? And I always love to use the examples, again, coming back into the world of tech. I look at technology companies as inspiration. But if you think about Amazon is the biggest company in the world. I think it takes Amazon 40-something seconds to make $1 million, right?
Yeah.
So they'll make quite a few millions in this conversation. They were a bookstore. So the largest company in the world, that's $100 billion a year revenue company worth a couple of $1 trillion, began its life as a bookstore, an online bookstore. And that's what it did. And it was the stability and the fact that it was able to grab significant market share in that particular industry, being the best bookstore online that could do things and hold more stock than any bricks and mortar bookstore could. And that was their proposition. It then gravitated to other things. Okay, AWS and as an infrastructure company, a technology infrastructure company, and obviously now it sells everything. Facebook did not start in all the countries it operates in today. Facebook started as a social platform for Harvard University. Very small TAM. And went from 0 to 60, 65% market capitalization in that TAM very, very quickly, and provided the foothold for it then to expand and become larger. So I think if you're a business owner sitting there now and you've opened a business or you've got a business and you're targeting 18-year-olds to 65-year-olds, you've got a real problem. That's not making your business competition proof, and it's not setting your business up for success. You want to narrow your TAM and you want to be the best at servicing that particular market in your area. And it's very difficult to be the best in servicing multiple generations, multiple different people.
Well, your messaging becomes confusing. Your service delivery becomes confusing. The type of community, because they're not like-minded in many ways. There's a lot of uphill challenges.
Absolutely. So I think narrowing your addressable market and becoming incredibly good at servicing that market, and I look at it whether it's, what part of the customer life do you want to own? Is it when they're young and they're about optimizing, getting fitter? Is it, again, we spoke to another health club owner and their business is purely in the pre and postnatal space. That's their space, and they are the best and they are known in their communities. But when a woman is in that stage of her life, a very important stage, they are, without exception, the best people in the community
because they're specialized in
to service them.
Yeah.
And so they always have customers. Their businesses do very, very well because they're known for that. So I think that's a real common mistake that people make. And again, counterintuitive. I want a big market. I want to have a business that can grow, but start off with a very specific TAM, a smaller TAM, I would say, and get market share and own that TAM before you then try and branch out. And that's my advice to everybody who's starting a new business or has an early stage business.
Yeah, it's really sound advice, because when you try to be everything to everyone, you end up being nothing to anybody. And whilst it looks good because your TAM is bigger, you end up just being part of the noise. There's a couple of other examples that I know you work with that have done well. So we've talked about the pre and postnatal space. What's a couple of other examples that you've got where they're addressing a particular segment of the market?
Over 55s, over 60s.
That's doing really well.
Doing really well.
Yeah.
I think that baby boomer market, they can be a little bit difficult to get in. But the retention in those businesses is very, very high. That market is less likely to jump based on new offers or new promotions that competitors in your area will be doing. They do want a very specific service, and obviously longevity is critical for them. People are living far longer, and nobody wants to spend the last 20 years of their life unable to move around and have a decent lifestyle. So that market is doing exceptionally well, and the retention rates in that market are significantly better than businesses that are targeting younger population. Kids, martial arts studios, they're phenomenal.
It's unbelievable, right? I wrote a Facebook post today and I said, the two biggest blue oceans right now that I'm seeing in the market, they're not new, right? But they are just profound, and you'd have the data to back this up. You've already said it, the senior market, right? The 55 plus market. We've got an aging population. I wrote my thesis on it 20 years ago, and now we're really starting to see it happen. But how many tailored solutions are there for them? And the awareness that they need to do something is that much greater as well. The second is the kids market. And look, you're a dad, I'm a dad. I will hesitate when it comes to spending money on myself. I will sit and I will and ah. My kids want to do an activity, zero hesitation whatsoever, right?
I've been wearing the same clothes for the last 10 years, mate. Same clothes, same shoes. My kids, I've got a new wardrobe every 6 months, mate. It's unbelievable. So, and that's the reality, right? And I think when you talk about, clubs and gyms retention, and it doesn't often, unfortunately, take much of a life shift for people to stop going to the gym, and they get a little bit stressed, or something changes with work, or something. You very rarely will change something that is useful and your kids are enjoying, regardless of what's going on in your life. You can lose your job, but you'll still find a way to make it happen. To get them to soccer or get them to their martial arts, and they're your kids. You're always going to make a greater sacrifice for them, and you're always going to put them ahead of yourself. And so I think that market is doing great. I think martial arts studios, probably without knowing it, or martial arts as a discipline, created the greatest retention strategy I think that's ever been implemented.
The grading and the belt system.
Absolutely.
Yeah, phenomenal.
Absolutely. I mean, I've spoken so many times to different owners in Pilates and all this space, and how do we replicate that? How do we create, that grading system where people come in on day one and the map is clear.
Yeah.
And I mean, High Rocks, CrossFit did it to a degree, and obviously High Rocks now, they created a gamification element where there was sort of a pathway to compete.
Yeah.
And we love to compete. We love to see clear progress, and we love to be able to, when you walk into a martial arts studio and you see someone wearing a black belt, even if you're not into martial arts, you understand what that means, and you'll aspire to that, and you'll watch that person, and that person who's wearing that black belt understands what it means and understands that, they hold that place in the club, and they're pretty incredible psychological things when it comes to retention.
I mean, it's huge with kids, but even adults, right? Digression, but one of my best mates, lawyer, very successful guy, and every time he got a stripe on his belt, he's on social media. He's posting it. He's proud. He's like a proud little kid. And then when he got his belt, and, it was a big moment for him. And
everyone knows what that means.
They do.
And you don't have to be in the martial arts, like I said, to see a post like that and know, oh, this person's increasing up their grade. They're obviously studying self-defense, martial arts. They're becoming more disciplined. Like, we all know what that means, and it's held that status, and it's such a it's such a discipline that has history, which is wonderful, and always trying to talk to owners and figure out ways that retention strategy can be implemented in a Pilates or a yoga or a group training. And it's not easy, and I don't have all the answers to that, but there's something quite incredible.
But there's principles in that you can follow, right? So, people want growth and they want recognition. So how can you build that into that customer journey? It's not a belt per se, but it might be a milestone merch. It might be a wall of fame. It might be an event they do. It might be testing that they do. It might be a competition that signifies that growth and progress. I want to shift gears a little bit. You mentioned cost of living earlier in the show. We're in a funny time right now. Right, Australia's in a funny time right now. We just had the budget handed down to us. We've had multiple interest rates, increases in a row. We're just heading into winter. How are you feeling about the state of the industry right now? Like, what's the data saying about the state of the industry right now?
There certainly still is growth in the industry, and again, there are certain niches that we just touched on before that are doing incredibly well. I think a few things. I think that you need to be very, very understanding of your data, and I think you need to start relying on other data metrics and honing on other metrics to grow your business. And it's not always going to be growth through acquiring more members.
We spoke about this in the green room before, because number one thing that most gym and studio owners talk about when it's metrics is the number of members they have, and it's a little empty, and it only gives you a very small insight into the health of that business. And if you're only focusing on that, then you are leaving so much on the table. And so if I'm reading through the lines, you're saying, it is a little more challenging than it may have been in the past to grow from a volume perspective. That's what you're saying.
Absolutely.
So you need to now adjust as an owner and go, okay, how can I build some layers to this? How can I build my LCV? How can I hold on to my clients longer, knowing that I might not be able to grow at the same rate that I used to in the past by adding new members?
Gaining leads is becoming more expensive. The cost of acquiring new clients is more
huge.
expensive.
Yeah, it's gone up 3 times just on paid ads. It's 3 times more expensive to acquire a client than it was 5 years ago.
Absolutely. So, and I mean, if you look at 2010 to now, I mean, we would have almost, I would say, 10 times the facilities and the options to train.
That's right.
Penetration rate's gone from, say, 12 to 18%. So it has gone up 6%, but there is certainly not gone up at the same ratio as now the options and facilities that we have.
And far more supply.
Correct. So I think the cost of acquiring new clients is far more expensive, and it is more difficult now to acquire clients than what it has been in the past. So you've got to find other levers in your business to be able to grow, and those levers are there. People still are spending money in this country. We have an incredibly strong middle class in this country.
We do.
Which has always driven our economy, and there is always that class that is there spending and investing and has driven our economy. So there are people who are still willing to spend $200, $300 a week in memberships, and we see it.
Absolutely. Like you and I had a lunch on Friday. The place, it wasn't a cheap lunch. Place was absolutely
packed,
bursting at the seams. I went out for dinner that night. You went out for dinner that night. Not an empty table to be seen, right? So people are still very happily spending money right now.
That's right. But you've just got to look internally in your business, and you've got to stop relying on gaining net new members to be able to grow your profitability.
I love that we're talking about this.
And you've got to look at ways that you can increase your average transaction volume. This is a data point that, you know, I've spoken to business owners about, and they've got no idea what I'm talking about. You know, what is the average amount of money that your client spends every single week in your business, and how are you going to increase that by 4%, 5%, 6%? And there are ways to do it. There are absolutely ways to do it without that are very, very simple ways, you know, and that starts with, if you've got a very clear market that you are talking to and you are building your business to service that particular market, there are, without exception, things that they need that you can also provide them.
That's right.
And if you are specializing in that market and people are having that experience that is very tailored and unique for them, they will engage with it more and they will spend more because the value in the experience aligns with them and what they need. Again, being very generic, it makes it very difficult.
Yes.
You know, because you can't specialize and you can't provide those additional items that a very specific type of client in your business might need, or you can't do it well enough that you might be able to shift that needle.
What are some of the things that your clients are doing right now to increase that metric? So to increase the yield per client and that average new consumer value?
So I'll use the over 55, 60s example.
Yeah.
They are doing incredibly well in the type of longevity supplements, certain supplements that obviously aid people in their older population, training and recovery, improving things like, you know, blood pressure, all of those types of things. So, you know, there are definitely those sort of add-on tools that when people go to a health and fitness, they're willing to invest in their health and fitness. They are probably buying these products and supplements
somewhere in particular. Why not be you?
And the other thing is people utilizing periods in the gym that aren't very busy to offer semi-private personal training and one-on-ones. You know, and the profit margin with personal training, you know, the most profitable studios I see, 120 to 150 members, but all buying personal training, semi-private, high-ticket items. They don't need a huge floor space to do it. They don't need a huge amount of staff. Those clients that are spending more and getting a high value, high return are staying longer, referring more. Those touch points are incredibly sticky. It's hyper-personalized. So they're the items that very easily people can look at additional sales and products that my consumers want to consume that I have the ability to provide or can educate them in, and what additional services are going to increase the likelihood of my customers gaining a result that they'll also engage in. So I think they're very simple, straightforward examples that people can look at, and if you can get 10, 15% of your audience to engage in some of those items,
I'd absolutely echo that and support that. Right now, we've been saying for a long time, it is more expensive to acquire that new client. That CAC is now going up and up and up. So how can I have every client worth more to me? I really like premium add-ons. I love a semi-private. I love personal training, particularly if it's in combination with your group training product. You'll just see exactly what you said. You'll see them. Not only does your yield increase, not only do your margins increase, but the retention improves. Yeah. The referral opportunities increase. Let's talk about retention because one metric is obviously increasing the yield. The other one is, how do we keep our clients longer? What's the data that you're seeing telling you about retention?
Unfortunately, I would say people aren't staying longer. You know, you're still sort of seeing around that 9-month mark as a bit of a critical point in time where people are leaving. But I mean, what would you think the biggest reason for people leaving a gym would be?
Not using the product.
It's actually relocation. So relocation is the number one reason why people leave a gym in the data that we see, which you can't prevent.
Yeah.
So I think first and foremost, you've got to be realistic about the retention targets that you do set and understand.
I always put retention in 2 categories. Yep. So you've got just unavoidable retention, which is relocation, and maybe it could be sickness or injury that leads to them not being part of your facility, right? That's the uncontrollable. That's why no one's ever going to be 100%. not even 99%. You might fluke it from one month to the other, but overall, as a larger context, you're not going to be there. So you're always going to lose something. The second part of that category is the things that you can control around retention.
If you're a business owner right now and you're sitting sort of between 7 to 9% a month churn, you're bang on about average.
Wow, that's much higher than I thought. 7 to 9%.
If you're above 9, you're really got to look at what you're doing. If you're 6 or under, congratulations.
Yeah, well, that's our community. 6 or under is our community,
and that's you are an exceptional fitness business when it comes to retention. So you're either getting and acquiring customers that are in your niche, in your particular TAM, or you're providing an experience that your customers are not confident they're going to be able to replicate with your competitors. If you're at 7 to 9, it's not the end. I would just encourage you to look at the audience that you are servicing and ensuring that you are very fixated on a particular type of customer that you want to help, and what is it about your business that you can start to promote, communicate, that shows the community that you are the best at that particular at servicing people in that particular time in their life. Yes, looking at the data is going to help. I would say it's usually around the 10 to 14 day missing in action or non-absence.
Okay, so you're saying that's a critical period. If they're absent more than 10 to 14 days, there's a strong likelihood you're going to see a cancellation.
And if you can look at it over, say, a 12-week period, if they repeat that block 2 or 3 times, if they repeat it 3 times, they're pretty much gone.
Yeah. Okay.
You've got to make health and fitness part of their weekly ritual. As soon as you lose them in their weekly rituals or it starts to become a fortnightly or longer, it becomes a difficult road to retain them. So you definitely got to look at that. A metric that we love to show in Xoda, and we talk a lot to our health clubs on, which again, I don't think is utilized enough, is how many or what percentage of the customer base has an upcoming or future booking. And it's just ensuring that people are, I had a conversation with a health club owner recently, and I said, why don't you just make it your club's objective? Make it a collective objective amongst you and your staff that for the next 4 weeks, you'll try everything you can to not let a client leave the studio without another booking. Yeah. Right? So at the end of the class, just cut the class 3 minutes short, get everybody just to, hey, we want to see you. When are you coming next? Do you have a booking? And just try and work on getting everybody to leave the studio with a return date.
Love that.
And it made a tremendous difference. It made a tremendous difference. And we were measuring their upcoming booking averages, and it was going up and up and up. And attendance was improving, and the average attendance count was going up. And the trainers really enjoyed doing it. The trainers really enjoyed having that conversation and saying, we love you. We love seeing you so much in here. I want to know that you're coming back.
Is there a benchmark that you advise on that? Like, should it be 90% of members have a future booking? Is there anything that you advise on that side?
Depending on the model. Again, if it's a boutique booking-based business, you absolutely want to be seeing at least 75% of your members to 80% of your members at any given time with an upcoming booking.
Okay.
If you can get it up to 90%, you're going to do very well. And those types of businesses should be aiming for about a 2.5 to 3 attendance rates.
I was going to ask on that. So what is there any sweet spots that you're seeing? And I know obviously it's model dependent, but let's look at it more as a team training facility. What's the sweet spot in terms of the visitations?
And again, you're absolutely right. Model dependent and also membership dependent as well. But 2.5 to 3, if you're looking at generically and a target that you want to hit, 2.5 to 3 visits a week is where you want to be.
Yeah, ours was always 3. We were always trying to work towards getting it to 3 across the average. And we knew when we saw it getting close to the 3, we were in a very healthy spot.
Yeah, and of course, we've always linked attendance to retention, and it's the most obvious thing. It's people are paying for a service. That service is to attend a facility and exercise. You go to a fine dining restaurant and you sit down and you eat. Whatever you don't eat, there is a lot of people in that back kitchen looking at that. Because if you're sending back food, they don't think you're going to come back.
No.
Because you clearly didn't eat the meal. You didn't finish what was on your plate.
Yeah.
So if I'm paying for a service to go and attend a club and I'm paying $60, $70, $100 a week and I'm not going and attending that service, it's a pretty clear indicator that there's something broken down. And it might not be you, it might be the member, but that is a conversation that you need to get in front of as soon as you possibly can. And restaurants do it incredibly. In the fine dining restaurants, anything you send back, there are people in the kitchen looking at that, trying to understand why you didn't finish that meal. Was there a problem? Is there something that they can do? And I've sat at fine dining restaurants before, and my wife is never the type to complain. So she's have an undercooked fish. She'll eat around a little bit of it. She'll say everything was fine. And we've had waiters come to us and say, we just checked that it was definitely undercooked. Meal's on us. We want you to come back. They're observing those things, and you've got to observe those details.
You need to do that as well.
And so attendance is obviously going to be an incredibly critical one, because are people actually using what they're paying your business to use?
You mentioned a critical point, and it always astounds me, but 9 months, because it feels like it's been 9 months for a long time. That's the spot where that's the average LCV thereabouts, how long a client is going to stay with you. Is there anything that you're seeing as to why it is 9 months? Is there any shifts, or is the data pointing towards any clues as to why it's there?
It's a really interesting question, because it does vary model to model. I think if we looked at some lifestyle metrics, I think definitely there is a relation between someone's activity outside the club and the relation to how much they do inside the club. So to summarize that, if you can get your customers living a more active lifestyle outside the club, that is going to directly relate to them staying longer in your business.
Yeah.
Okay. So lifestyle data, I think, is going to become incredibly more important in the years to come. And we're living in an age now where obtaining lifestyle data on our customers is becoming more and more possible, because everybody is wearing wearables.
I heard an interesting stat at a conference we were at in Singapore, and that was that a larger majority are doing more and more things outside of the club, but they want to make sure that they are recognized for that by the service provider. And that has a direct correlation. So that supports what you say.
And I think the service provider should feel a sense of responsibility to ensure that they are encouraging their customers to live a healthy lifestyle beyond the club as well. And I think if you can make that shift, because the gym goer who's going 2-3 times a week and then living an unhealthy lifestyle, sedentary, not eating well, drinking, smoking, they're just not going to stay.
No.
They're not going to stay. So I think health club owners need to extend their responsibility to ensuring that they do everything they can, that clients still maintain a very active, healthy lifestyle outside the club. That has a direct relation already in what we're seeing with their ability to retain that client longer term. And for us, from a Xoda lens, it's how much of that lifestyle data can we capture and how much of that can we surface to health clubs with the intent of giving them the power to continue to encourage and move the needle for those customers from a lifestyle point of view. If you can get sleep, if you can get inactive incidental exercise like steps, and you can move the needle on those things, those clients will come more regularly. Those clients will be more engaged. Those clients will be more excited about their health and fitness, because the transition, the transformation will be there. So I think the hardest challenge health club owners have to overcome, and why that retention needle hasn't moved, is lifestyle factors are probably starting to point more and more towards us becoming less healthy, because we do eat more processed foods. We do live in a world that is more sedentary. We do have more screen time. We probably don't sleep as well because we spend more time looking at a screen. So those markers, they really need to improve. And I think if we can improve those markers, we can also directly improve the retention inside clubs.
As a software creator for the fitness industry, is that some of the things that you're looking to incorporate to be able to capture more of that lifestyle data so we get a more full picture of the client behavior?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a huge focus for us at Xoda, has been for some time. We've taken some pretty significant steps into doing that. But we want our health club owners, and I've said this last time we spoke, and I've said it many times, it starts with a belief that fitness businesses should be and are the most important businesses in their community because of what I feel they have the capacity to give to people. And I think when you've got a business of that importance, the more information they can have about the people that they are serving, the healthier communities are going to be.
Yeah.
And so that is something that we are continuously trying to move the needle on how we can continue to surface that data in a way where it's very easy to understand, it's easy to action, and it's easy to measure things that you are doing against those data points to see if you are shifting the needle. But I think we need to start seeing our responsibility extend beyond the four walls of our health clubs. And it starts with getting access to information as to what's going on with our customers outside the four walls in our health clubs.
Yeah, I think we've got a lot more power once we start having access to that. So it's an exciting development.
And that'll be the big shift in the next 5 to 10 years. I think business owners that can harness that philosophy can obtain and use the tools that can give them that data in a very sophisticated way, that they can take those action insights and they can move the needle from a lifestyle point of view. I think they're gonna do very, very well.
Yeah, I agree. I want to talk about great members, long-term members, and those members that have been with us for years and years and years. Is there anything that the data is telling us, any clues so we can have more of those?
They spend more.
Yep. Okay. So they spend more and they stay longer.
They spend more and they stay longer. So higher spend members definitely have a better retention, which again, you'd think people that are spending less will be, no, but higher spend members consuming a greater portion of the service will stay longer. Relationships matter. Relationships matter. We track a bit of this through our connectivity component in our app, where we're seeing clubs that have a high utilization of the friend features in our app.
Yep.
So they're sort of connecting with other members, they're inviting to classes, they're sort of sharing posts, they're communicating. But we say if there is 3 strong relationships in a club, if I'm a member and I have 3 strong relationships, that is definitely going to translate to a longer retention. And if they do refer, that is always a good indicator, because they are making your space part of their world. And to make it part of their world, they're going to introduce people from their world in. They want to have an experience with their outside world inside your world. So that's really the coming together of that. So if they refer, they spend more. And if they've got 3 friends or 3 strong connections, can be a staff member too, that's a pretty good indicator that you've got a client there that's going to be around for some time.
Yeah, love that. So that's what we need. We need clients spending more. We need to make sure that they've got some fantastic social connections. Obviously, your software helps facilitate those outside of the physical premises as well. And then if they're referring, I want to talk about the hidden numbers that a lot of fitness business owners are probably not looking at, but they should be looking at.
I think a few things. We touched on it previously, but lifetime value, average transaction value, customer spend, I think those metrics are incredibly important. Looking at what on average your clients are spending, what their lifetime value is, gives you a bit more of an indicator of what you can actually invest in incentivizing them as well. If you've got a lifetime value of $2,500 for a member, you can afford to spend a bit on acquiring them and continuing to incentivize them.
It's really important on acquisition.
Absolutely, to make the numbers work, you know. And then looking at the other end, I think appointment show rates for leads is an incredibly important one. That's a really clear indicator of how trusted your brand is in the community. If you're getting 1 out of 3, consultations or studio tours show up, there's probably a little bit of a...
What should it be?
You want to be getting at least 65% of appointments show up.
Okay.
If you're getting less than 50%, then there's probably a bit of a trust issue.
Yeah.
But you at least want to be getting, as a bare minimum, 1 in 2.
Yeah.
But I would say you want to be benchmarking closer off 65 to 70% show rate, not conversion rate, show rate.
Yep.
Conversion rates, again, average we're seeing kind of 27, 28%.
Yeah, wow, lower than I would have thought. Far lower.
And again, it's a little bit model dependent and varied, but yeah, you certainly want to be kind of aiming for over 35, 38% if you want to really be a high performing club. And if you can get it over 50, you're
doing very well.
Different league.
Yeah.
So I would be saying the appointment show rate, and I'd be very interested in, I think first booking, looking at the data of everybody who's completed a first session or a first session or booking in your business in the last 3 or 4 months, and seeing what occurred after that. So from 1 session to 2 session, I think is incredibly important. And you want a very high ratio of people that do the first session actually come back and do a second session. So that's trial users or people that join
Critical in that first stage.
Absolutely.
Make or break.
If you're using a really good system, CRM, to track leads, if you can measure time to first contact, that's a huge one. If you can see a lead is coming in, what that first interaction looks like and how quickly that interaction happens, that's going to dramatically change your conversion rate. We know that. Speed to contact.
Yeah.
Every data point you look at, there's nowhere where you'll see speed working against you. There's no data point I can ever see or I can ever point to where it says contacting leads quickly there is a downside. There is no downside.
It's the number one thing by far that you can do to improve your conversion. By far.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So speed is king. And I think if you need to look at your cost of acquisition, you need to look at your lifetime value. You need to figure out what you can invest in a customer during their time with you to maintain their interest and incentivize them to continue to come back. And you need to know what that number is. Spend that number. Make that investment. Credit card companies have been doing it for years. Every time you spend, they give you a point, and those points account to money that you go and spend. They know how much interest you're going to pay on average. They've worked out the equation. So you get enough free stuff to keep you spending on the credit card, but not too much that's going to send them broke.
That's exactly right.
So work out that equation.
Awesome. Just to finish up really quickly, one final question. What's one belief that Gym or Studios have that the data disagrees with?
I think you don't always need to grow your active member count to increase profitability.
Love that. What a great note to finish on.
That would probably be, I would say that would be it. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah, love that. Mate, this was fun. I appreciate you coming here again to deliver so much value to me and the incredible audience that we have. So I appreciate you, everything that you do for me, the community and the industry itself. Thank you.
So happy to be a part of your community, mate. You've got a wonderful community, great health club owners, and we're privileged to be a part of it.
Fantastic. And thank you guys. Thank you so much for listening and watching today's episode. I hope it's been insightful. I hope it's been helpful. And I hope it will enable you to make some little shifts and changes so you can make more profit, have more impact, and enjoy more freedom. Thanks for watching and listening to today's episode of Profit Made Simple.